We told you that this was going to happen. We warned you that Project 2025 was going to happen, and you didn't listen. Even the media said, oh, Trump said he doesn't know anything about it. But here we are. The Department of Education is being disbanded and destroyed, and it is all part of the plan. Seriously, Trump is set to sign an executive order today that will tell the head of the Department of Education to do everything in their power to get rid of it. What does this do, and why do they want to do this? There are so many reasons, but we need to go back a little bit further. Last year, during the election, Trump said he didn't know. I don't have anything to do with Project 2025. And people, I don't understand how people believed this. I received messages from people that said, Project 2025 is not the boogeyman that all of you woke leftists are making it out to be. But here we are, and every single step and every chapter of Project 2025 is being implemented. The main architect of Project 2025, Russell Voigt, was nominated and confirmed as the White House budget director. This is the man who literally wrote it. A bunch of people contributed and helped write it, but he's the main guy, right? The vice president, Trump's right-hand man. The real president is Elon, and Elon's right-hand man is Trump, and Trump's left-hand man is J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance wrote the foreword. So how are you going to tell me you didn't know anything about it? And we tried to warn you. We tried to warn everybody. Everybody that saw this coming a mile away. And the press, the weak press, asked him a handful of times about it. And he just, shrugged it off. I don't know anything about that. And I don't know if that was enough. Was that enough? Because it wasn't enough for me. Here we are. The Department of Education is going to be disbanded. Now, the sad part is, while the Department of Education does a lot of good, there's also part of the Department of Education that is kind of useless. And could that be classified as fraud, abuse, and waste? Maybe. I could see someone making that argument, and I could kind of see the argument behind it, okay? The overall big picture is that since the Department of Education was created, math scores and reading scores have not changed very much, right? The entire basis of this was part of the Department of Education is to direct money, right? It's the office that says where federal money is going to go in the United States, to which school districts, right? And it also says what those school districts are allowed to do with that money. It also then dictates Title IX, which says you cannot discriminate students based on a multitude of things. We'll get to that in a minute. So if you discriminate against students based on anything, then you don't receive federal funding through the Department of Education. So this is one of the good things that they do. But the Department of Education does not dictate or control what is taught in schools. That is left up to the states. And this is one of the things that Project 2025 and Trump wants to, and all of the GOP and all of MAGA wants to do. They want to put the power, this is what they talk about all the time. They want to put the power back to the states. This is both good and bad. It's good in the sense that it allows states to teach proper history. It allows states to teach children the things that they should be taught. The flip side to that, of course, is that it also allows states to not teach properly. It allows states to, first off, if there's no more Department of Education, there's no more Title IX, although that, I don't know how they're going to get around that. But then if there's no more federal funding for schools, then schools are allowed to discriminate. And basically, they can just say, we're not going to, there's no money for this school. So then the states, it's on the states, right? And what this allows states to do, states like Arkansas and Kentucky and Mississippi and all of those states, this allows them to say, we're going to give more money to the schools where the white kids go, and we're going to give less money to the schools where the black and brown kids go. And that's it. You can argue with me that that won't happen, blah, blah, blah. I promise you, it's going to happen, okay? This is the goal. This also allows states to further push their voucher programs. Now, voucher programs, what they do is they set state funding for the schools. They set money aside that parents can tap into to subsidize putting their kids in a private school. And what many studies have found is that the vast majority of parents, because it doesn't fully pay for it, right? And if your private school tuition is $10,000 and the voucher is only $2,000, then you still, as a parent, have to come up with $8,000. Well, if you're poor, you don't have $8,000. So even if there's a $2,000 voucher, there's no way that you're going to be able to use it unless the school gives your kid an $8,000 scholarship, which does happen. But study after study has found that the majority of kids' parents that are using these vouchers, they're already in private school. So those parents are footing the $10,000 bill, and then they're just taking $2,000 so that now they're only footing an $8,000 bill. The problem is that $2,000 that they took it from a kid in public school, which means less books, less music instruments, less art supplies, less computers, less education. That's what this means. This means less opportunity and less education for poor kids, right? So the other thing that Project 2025 and getting rid of the Department of Education, what else does this do? Title I in the Department of Education gives grants to poor school districts. These grants are no strings attached with basically zero oversight or accountability of how that money is spent. Now, the vast majority of how that money is spent is through pay. It's through teacher pay. So if the school district, if it's a poor school district, they have low income tax in the state, they have low real estate tax, they have low property tax. They don't have very much money for their schools. Their teacher pay is very low. this will not attract good teachers. So you are going to get not the best teachers. You're probably going to get teachers that care a lot, because nobody would take that job with poor pay if they didn't actually care. So the teachers, I'm sure, care, but the best teachers are going to go to the highest pay. That's just the way it is. And Title I gives grants. There are over 180,000 teachers in the United States that are basically paid through those grants. Disbanding the Department of Education, and thus the money that flows through Title I for these grants, would essentially eliminate 180,000 teachers across the United States. And basically all of them are in poor school districts. So without that, now, instead of your child having a classroom of 30 children, they are going to have 40, 50, 60 children in a classroom, which, if you've ever tried to wrangle even 12 to 20 children, 40 to 60 children is basically impossible. Nothing will get done. And a vast majority of children will not receive the attention that they need to receive to make sure that they are learning what they are being taught. So the poor kids will receive less. They already receive less. Let's be clear. They will receive even less with this. So what else gets thrown out? Head Start. Head Start is early childhood development, and this is pre-K and kindergarten. And pre-K is normally paid for by parents. So usually if you can find a cheap pre-K through a local church or some other nonprofit, usually the cost is very low, but there is still a cost. It is still not free. And those programs are subsidized and paid for through money that is doled out from the Department of Education. If the Department of Education no longer exists, Head Start no longer exists. It is now on the state to fund those Head Start programs. How many children are in those Head Start programs? 833,000, almost 1 million children are in those programs. Those programs help children to socialize, to learn how to play, and learn how to start going to school. They learn how to become part of society. This is where kids make friends. This is also where kids get a meal. The majority of kids in the Head Start program receive free meals. This is something that the GOP and MAGA have always been against. And I don't understand this. How you can claim to be pro-life and pro-children and then remove meals from children who cannot afford it. This blows my mind. I cannot fathom this. How you say you are a Christian and you follow God and Jesus and the teachings of the Bible, and you want to remove meals from poor children. How? How can you even justify this? It has been proven time and time again that children's brains will not learn properly if they are not fed. If children, it is something, your brain literally does not function on a chemical level and on all sorts of other levels where your brain does not learn. Part of it is that your brain is literally telling your body we're hungry. We need to eat. And when you need to eat, when you're hungry, you literally cannot focus. If you can't focus, you can't learn. So let's remove this program so that the poor kids don't get food. Now the poor kids don't learn properly. The poor kids fall behind. The poor kids just become dumber. And then they don't go to college, and then they don't get good jobs. So now you have, and I don't know, is this full circle to bringing manufacturing back to the United States? We're going to bring the jobs back, right? So now the poor kids, because they've barely graduated high school or they dropped out of high school, the only thing they can do is manual labor in a warehouse. So is this how Bezos staffs the Amazon warehouse, right? By poor kids. And the disgusting and amazing thing, and it's almost hilarious, is that the vast majority of red states are going to suffer the most. The Department of Education being disbanded, money no longer being sent to public schools. This will affect red states the most. Mississippi, Alabama, right? Arkansas, Kentucky, all of these states, they will be affected the most. Your children's schools are going to go downhill. But these are the people that voted for this. You voted for this. If you live in one of those states, you voted for this. Now, you get to see what happens to your kids' schools. Oh, you can't afford private school? So sorry. Your kid goes to the public school. And red states will fall farther behind because blue states will put the priority. This does not make America great again. Having a weak education system does not make America great again. It makes America stupid. And the rest of the world funds their education system so that they have smart children, so that those children then go on to become doctors and engineers. Those kids go on to create the future. That's not what Project 2025 wants. What Project 2025 wants is for the rich white kids to go on to do that, while the poor kids work. That's what's going to happen. So, anything else? Oh yes, there's more. Title IX. Title IX has to do with discrimination. And if your school is given federal money for your school cannot discriminate based on gender, race, sexual orientation. This will get rid of all of that. One of the biggest goals of Project 2025 is to completely erode all protections for especially LGBTQ people and especially for race. This basically will allow schools to segregate. And it will also allow schools to really discriminate based on sexual orientation and now your gender preference. So now it will be up to the states. And again, you will see blue states who will keep those protections in place, and you will see red states remove those protections. Those people who fall into those categories will no longer be safe in those states. Those states will even be allowed, without those protections under Title IX, to discriminate against kids playing in sports. Now, I don't want to get into the whole deal of trans people competing in sports. It's a whole separate topic. And because I am also a coach, I own a gym, and we compete competitively, there's part of that I actually agree with, and we're not going to get into that right now. But It is an extremely small percentage of athletes. And when I say extremely small, I mean extremely small. But Title IX removes that protection against discrimination. We've already talked about school vouchers. We've talked about what this will do to schools. We've talked about Title I, Title IX, the end of Head Start. All of this was made possible by Trump voters. When you see how far back this takes our public schools and our public education system, you have one person to blame, that is Trump, and then you have a group of people to blame. It is the people who enabled Trump. It is the media who downplayed Project 2025 and what it would do to this country and what it would do to our education system. And you have all of the other people that enabled this. The people who wrote Project 2025, the vice president who wrote the foreword, and then you have all of the people who voted for Trump, who believed him when he said he didn't know anything about it. That is who you have to blame. This will take decades to fix. And you can thank Trump and Project 2025.